Before he became a household name, before he brought laughter to millions, George Lindsey was just a small-town boy with big dreams. Born on December 17, 1928, in the heart of Alabama, Fairfield to be exact, George was raised with good old-fashioned Southern values. His father was a butcher, his mother a homemaker, and his early life was filled with simple joys: football games, fishing trips, and family dinners. But acting? That wasn't in the picture, not yet, at least. In high school, George was all about sports. He was the quarterback for Walker County High, commanding the field with the same energy and enthusiasm he'd later bring to Hollywood. After graduating in 1946, his path seemed set in a different direction: first military school, then college at Florence State Teachers College, where he majored in physical education and biology. Imagine that. Goober Pyle, a biology teacher. It's a far cry from the grease-stained overalls we'd all come to love him in. But destiny has a funny way of pulling people toward their true calling. During college, George found himself drawn to the stage, the thrill of performance awakening something inside him. Teaching was stable, sure, but the lights of the theater? That was a different kind of magic. After a stint in the Air Force, George packed his bags and set his sights on New York City. He enrolled at the American Theater Wing, the prestigious institution that helped shape some of the greatest names in the industry. It wasn't easy, far from it. He took whatever roles he could, from Broadway productions to quirky TV appearances. He even landed a spot on To Tell the Truth, a popular quiz show at the time, where he introduced himself as a nightclub comic who loved spearfishing. And laugh they did, because that was George's gift, his ability to make people smile, even when the world felt a little too heavy. That gift would eventually take him all the way to Hollywood, and into the hearts of millions. Hollywood is a city of dreamers, but for every dream that comes true, 1,000 others fade into obscurity. George Lindsey arrived with nothing but ambition and a talent for making people laugh. He took on small roles in classic westerns like Gunsmoke and The Rifleman, proving he had the chops to hold his own on screen. But his big break, that came in 1964 when he was cast as Goober Pyle on the Andy Griffith Show. Goober wasn't just a character, he was an experience. A lovable, simple-minded mechanic with a heart of gold and a brain that, well, maybe wasn't quite as sharp as his wrench. Fans adored him. His awkward charm, his quirky mannerisms, and that unmistakable laugh made him a standout in the small-town world of Mayberry. And speaking of standout moments, who could forget Goober's Cary Grant impression? Judy, Judy, Judy. It became one of his signature bits, a goofy yet endearing attempt at sophistication that always left audiences in stitches. Goober Pyle became a fan favorite, and for George Lindsey, it was the role of a lifetime. He had finally found his place in television history, and Mayberry would never be the same again. Mayberry may have been the picture-perfect small town on screen, but behind the scenes, things weren't always as warm and friendly. While most of the cast got along like family, there was one relationship that was, well, let's just say it was less than harmonious. Frances Bavier, the beloved Aunt Bee, was the heart of Mayberry, a gentle, nurturing presence who took care of Sheriff Andy and little Opie. But in real life, she wasn't exactly the warm and cuddly type. Frances was a serious actress, a seasoned professional trained in the New York theater scene. She took her work very seriously, expecting the same level of professionalism from everyone around her. And then there was George Lindsey, playful, full of jokes, always trying to get a laugh out of the cast and crew. For some, his light-hearted nature was a delight, a much-needed break from the long hours of filming. But for Frances Bavier, it was grating. She found his antics distracting, unprofessional, even disrespectful. George, on the other hand, couldn't understand why she was so uptight. He once described her as a grand lady, but admitted she could be difficult to work with. Their off-screen tension built over time, leading to some truly awkward moments on set. And then came the umbrella incident. Oh yes, this was the moment their feud went from cold stares to physical contact, and not in a friendly way. It happened on the set of Mayberry R.F.D. George, as usual, was goofing off, cracking jokes between takes. But this time he took it too far. Frances had had enough. She grabbed her umbrella, marched over to him, and whack, brought it down over his head. He went silent. And just as George was processing what had happened, whack, she hit him again, right there, in front of the entire cast and crew. The humiliation was real. George, usually the one delivering the punchlines, was now the punchline himself. He later admitted that moment stung, not just physically, but emotionally. He had always been the fun-loving clown, but this time the joke was on him. Frances, unapologetic as ever, simply turned and walked away, as if nothing had happened. It's ironic, isn't it, that the woman who played the sweet and gentle Aunt Bee could have such a fiery side. But that was Frances Bavier, kind to her fans, committed to her craft, but not one to tolerate nonsense on set. Despite their off-screen battles, they remained professionals where it mattered most. On camera, they played their parts to perfection, giving audiences the small-town charm they had come to love. But behind the scenes, let's just say George probably kept his distance whenever he saw an umbrella in her hands. Some wounds heal over time, but some just stay open. And for George Lindsey, the umbrella incident wasn't something he could just laugh off. After that day, their relationship was never the same. While they continued to work together professionally, there was an undeniable coldness between them. George never got the apology he wanted. Unlike Andy Griffith, who years later received a heartfelt call from Frances Bavier, expressing her regrets about being difficult, Lindsey got nothing. No phone call, no reconciliation, no moment of closure. Andy, being the man everyone loved both on and off screen, had a way of bringing out the best in people. But with George, that door was never opened again. It was as if the two had simply decided to exist in separate worlds, never truly addressing the tension that had simmered between them for years. Even as time went on, and Mayberry became nothing more than nostalgia for TV fans, that one moment of public humiliation never quite faded from George's mind. Frances Bavier may have played one of the most beloved characters in television history, but to those who worked with her, she was something of a mystery. Unlike Aunt Bee, who welcomed friends and family with open arms, Frances was known to be distant, sometimes even cold. She wasn't rude, necessarily just incredibly private and serious about her work. Many cast members respected her professionalism, but others found her difficult, even unfriendly. While Andy Griffith and Ron Howard would joke and banter between takes, Frances often kept to herself. Some speculated that she never truly enjoyed Hollywood life, despite her success. She struggled with the idea that people expected her to be like Aunt Bee in real life. In truth, she was much more reserved and reclusive than her on-screen character. And as time went on, she withdrew even further, eventually retiring to a quiet life in North Carolina, far away from the bright lights of Hollywood. In her final years, she lived alone, reportedly regretting some of the ways she had treated her castmates, but never truly making amends with all of them. Though fans will always remember her as the sweet and loving Aunt Bee, those who worked with her knew there was much more beneath the surface. But what if I told you that George Lindsey, yes, Goober Pyle himself, was almost part of one of the most legendary sci-fi franchises of all time? It sounds crazy. But it's true. Before Leonard Nimoy became the face of Star Trek's iconic Vulcan, producers were considering other actors for the role. And one of those names? George Lindsey. Can you imagine it? The man best known for playing the goofy, lovable Goober. As his stoic and logical Mr. Spock, it would have been a career-defining move on that could have completely changed the trajectory of his life. But for whatever reason, Lindsey reportedly turned it down. Instead, the role went to Leonard Nimoy, who embraced it fully and became a cultural icon. Meanwhile, Lindsey stayed in the world of Mayberry, forever tied to his small-town mechanic character. Did he regret it? That's something he never fully admitted. But looking at how Star Trek exploded into one of the biggest franchises in TV history, it's hard not to wonder, what if? To most people, George Lindsey will always be Goober Pyle, the lovable, slightly dim-witted mechanic from Mayberry. But what many don't realize is that his career stretched far beyond the Andy Griffith Show. After Mayberry, Lindsey didn't fade into the background like some TV stars of his time. He kept working, landing roles on shows like Hee Haw, where his comedic timing and southern charm made him a fan favorite. He also made guest appearances on a variety of programs, keeping his face familiar to audiences long after Mayberry had closed its doors. And here's a fun fact that might surprise you. Lindsey even left his mark on Disney. His distinctive voice brought characters to life in beloved animated films like the Aristocats and Robin Hood. That unmistakable Southern drawl? Yep, that was Lindsey as Lafayette, the comical hound in the Aristocats, and as one of Prince John's henchmen in Robin Hood. He might have been best known for his on-screen persona, but his work in voice acting gave him a whole new audience, one that might not have even realized who was behind the microphone. But George Lindsey's biggest impact wasn't just on screen, it was in the lives he touched off-screen. Despite his Hollywood success, Lindsey never forgot where he came from. He dedicated himself to philanthropy, using his fame to give back to those in need. One of his biggest passions? The Alabama Special Olympics. Over the course of his life, he helped raise over $1 million for the organization, ensuring that children with disabilities had the chance to experience the joy of sports and competition. And it didn't stop there. Lindsey also established scholarships at the University of North Alabama, giving students opportunities they might not have had otherwise. For him, success wasn't just about making people laugh, it was about making a difference. On May 6, 2012, George Lindsey passed away at the age of 83. He left behind a career that brought laughter to millions, a legacy of kindness through his charity work, and his story full of ups, downs, and unforgettable moments. Though he may have had his struggles, his clashes with co-stars, the missed opportunities, the moments of regret, there's no denying that George Lindsey carved out a place for himself in entertainment history. To some, he was just Goober, but to those who knew him best, he was so much more a performer, a philanthropist, and a man who never stopped making people smile. George Lindsey's journey was anything but ordinary. From a small-town boy in Alabama to a household name in American television, his story was filled with humor, heart, and a few headline-making moments. He may have been best known as Goober Pyle, but his life and career were far richer than just one role. Through all the laughter and all the challenges, one thing remained true. He loved entertaining people. And even in his later years, whether through his philanthropy or his continued presence in the entertainment world, he never stopped bringing joy to others. In the end, George Lindsey left us with more than just a character. He left a legacy, one of laughter, kindness, and a reminder that even in the brightest spotlights, a little bit of down-home charm goes a long way. Thank you for watching. Check out our other video and give us a like and subscribe for more.